But Monstrous Cock was just like a really...
Monstrous what, sorry? You said Monstrous Cock.
I am all ears. A ghost fancast.
Hello, welcome to the I'm All Ears podcast with me, Alva. Today we're going to be hopping back in on dissecting Ghost's albums. So today is INFESTISSUMAM. And while we're on this era, we're going to throw in If You Have Ghosts, since it's all kind of joined in one. So who we got today? We've got Katie, Cami, and Alana. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Howdy. So, INFESTISSUMAM. This took me a while to learn how to spell and say this when I was first a Ghost fan. The Latin is translated to the most hostile. Am I right in saying that? Is everyone else kind of agreed? That's what they found?
Most hostile or most threatening.
Awesome. This was released on the 10th of April 2013. So just shy of 2 years after Opus Eponymous. If you look at the album cover, it is a reference to the movie poster of Amadeus. And it's the view you get when you look out into the Vatican City from St. Peter's. I can't say this word. Is it Basilica?
Basilica.
That's the one. Yeah. So if you go there, which I'm going to be doing in August, I'm so excited. And you look out from there, you get that exact view. And there's a little baby in the little square. Well, circle rather, but it's a square. Was this the first BC album?
Yes.
Yeah. I actually have a little thing about the. Sorry, Ryder, but I have a little thing about the cover for Amadeus.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Go for it.
a reference to a Mozart play called Don Giovanni, which is probably the darkest play that Mozart ever did. It's the story of Don Juan, which links back to him. But it's basically that mask that he's wearing, which is also the same mask that the ghouls wear that era, the Batu masks. The scene in that is basically Don Giovanni dresses up to kind of like woo his servants, one of his servants' girlfriends, and they meet in a graveyard afterwards, and they're talking about it, and then a ghost appears, and
it links.
Yeah, it says, I wrote down, it's like, in one of its most famous scenes, Don Giovanni dresses up in disguise to try and seduce one of his servants' girlfriends. A voice from a statue warns him that his laughter will not last beyond sunrise. Don Giovanni arrogantly taunts the ghost, inviting him to dinner. The phantom's arrival is announced with the ominous knock on the door. The phantom offers Don Giovanni one last chance to repent. When he refuses, he's surrounded by demons and carried away to hell. A final ensemble continues the moral, such is the end of the evildoer. The death of sinners always reflects his life. Which was kind of like weird for the time whenever he wrote this play, because that's not kind of the plays that, operas they do. And I just think it's really interesting that they picked that for the cover of Amadeus, and it works really well with ghosts as well, because it's the demons and hell and ghosts and things. And also Don Juan.
Yeah, it's like Leviathan. How many degrees of separation does this have?
Yeah,
to be a ghost
great.
Reference? That's great.
It's so good.
So, getting onto the album as a whole again, I think just before we get into song by song, just to cover a few more basics about the general thing of INFESTISSUMAM. So it was produced by, oh God help me with this name, Nick Rakulines. Google it. I can't do it. In Nashville, Tennessee, of all places. And this was brought up a lot because there was first there was a problem with getting the choir to sing some of the lyrics in, I think it was both in INFESTISSUMAM and in Year Zero. And there's a quote from Bester here which said, "We told them that what they were supposed to sing, and one of the guys almost cried. He took offense. It was really weird. So we ended up recording the choir in Hollywood, where people have no problem worshipping the devil." And another thing that we had was the pressing issue with the album artwork. Not the cover, but inside. He said that it wasn't the, satanic upside down inverted cross. It was a vagina that they had a problem with. Which I just find so funny.
Oh no, not a vagina.
God help a vagina.
It's that Parks and Rec quote, I can excuse racism, but I can't excuse this. And she's like, you can excuse racism.
I draw the line at vaginas.
Yeah. I can excuse Satanism, but vaginas.
So going back to the album artwork, this was actually the first album that Zbigniew, is that how you say his name? Zbigniew?
Yeah.
Who's pretty much done almost every cover since has done. And I think he did a smashing job, if I don't do say so myself.
I actually found a quote from him before we sorry, I interrupted again, but I found a quote from him on Instagram, and it's
Oh,
him
yeah.
talking about how he, got in contact with Ghost.
Yeah.
And he says, everyone knows the current Ghost stage design, but interestingly enough, our cooperation also began with the stage design. I first met Tobias in London 2011 at a Whiteton's Lawless Darkness release party, where he played a show with Repugnant. I illustrated Whiteton's album and held a small exhibit of my work, which he apparently liked. Back then, merely a year after the release of Opus Eponymous, Ghost was still a clandestine entity. I really wanted to do something for Repugnant, which I loved, but album plans were put on hold. Shortly after, he reached out if I could design some gothic stage props for his other band, Ghost. I proposed a standalone gothic window, but complexity of the design and tricky production rendered the project not feasible at the time. I naively approached it with a physical 3D framework in mind. We had to wait over 10 years to finally have an actual full-scale architectural elements on stage. So he had this, he has on his Instagram pictures of these beautiful windows that he designed that were going to go on stage during Opus and stuff, but they just couldn't make them, and I'm so sad.
Also, the fact he was wanting to do something for Repugnant as well.
Yeah.
That's insane. There's a drawing as well that his sister Maria did of like it's not exactly the same as what was released, but you can kind of see it's like Papa Emeritus holding a baby type thing. It's really cool. It's in like a cool charcoal-y kind of sketch. So you can see like the groundwork was sort of laid there by her, and then he kind of carried on the concept.
There was also 2 titles for the album originally, because he had obviously Infestissusam, and then The Sound of Doom to Come was the other one.
Okay, boring people, no Sound of Doom to come, sad face.
It's so funny. It's great.
If you don't know what that is, if you look up the Ghost lawsuit, you can see the email where they were arguing over this album title, and he was like really sad about it. He was like, "Okay, boring people." Right, let's dive in then. Womp womp. Let's dive in. So the album starts up with Infestissimum. Same name as the album. Great track, banger track. If you translate the Latin, this is what I've got. So again, people might have different because obviously a lot of Latin translations differ. But I've got down the Father, the Son, and the evil spirit. Everything heavenly must be destroyed. The Antichrist, the son of Satan, the most hostile one. I don't know if anyone else has got anything that differs to that, but that's what I found.
No, that's what I found as well.
Yeah. But I kind of want this intro back for live because if you watch it live, it's one of the ones that I think slaps the most. If I'm honest,
it's just so grand, like it's and also it's like the transition from that to Paraspora is just so it's absolutely flawless. Like,
oh my god, yes,
it's one of the best ones they've done because I know he's done it a couple of times with the kind of transition between tracks to tracks, but like that one probably is the one that worked the absolute best. I feel like Ghosts need to get more choir stuff back in because I know they have some choir stuff in 20s and Respite in the Spitalfields, but we need this kind of like Latin choir back in. Because I was re-listening to Infestissusam when I like on repeat while I was like taking notes. I was like, I don't give this album enough credit. Like it's very, it's very satanic, obviously, but like it's the most satanic of their albums because of all the Latin and choirs and I think it's so good. It's
what's ironic? This is I kind of put this as my least favorite album, and I'm not saying that as in it's bad. I'm just saying you've got to have a least favorite of your favorites. But it's weirdly the one that I think sounds more like the most rather what Ghost is. Like what you say, because there's like a lot of Latin, there's a lot of choir, they've got a little bit more budget, so it's like a bit more beefier than Opus, but it's still like it's proggy, there's synths, there's like a lot of yeah, it's just, to me, this is like, if he was gonna like encapsulate Ghost, this is that album the most, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm talking bollocks, but this is just
No,
that's
it's
just what
you're
I
not.
think.
No, it definitely is. Like, if you were gonna pick an album out of all the albums, like, which one is the one that you think represents Ghost? Like, what people think Ghost should sound like? It's
Yeah, I
InfestissumaM.
think that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say, because it's like, it's weird to say that because it's regarded in terms of my favorites. It's at the bottom, but it's still a good album. But it's, to
It's
me,
better
it's the
than
most
most
Ghost.
people's best album. It's not the
Exactly.
best
Yeah.
he's done, but it's not also like it's better than most people's best album, because you can't make a bad album with Ghost. Knock on wood.
Waiting
And
for the day.
honestly, I think that when people say, "Oh, I miss when Ghost was heavier," or "I miss when Ghost was more, say, whatever," I think they're really saying, "I miss Infestissimum."
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Even though there's a lot of boogie rock and like synths on this album.
Yeah.
So
Also, Secondo or Papa Emeritus too, depending on what website you use more frequently. Um, I think that he probably had the sculpt for Secondo is probably my favorite. Like, I love Copia, I love him so much, but I absolutely think like when you see the shots from concerts and stuff of him in the dark, low lit with the kind of just one solid light on him, the face paint and just the sculpt of Secondo's face, like, it's just so, he looks so cool. And also, as well, for some reason in that album, he looked like he was about 7 foot tall. Like, he looked a lot
Yeah.
taller and broader than he did when he was, you can, like, I can fully understand why people thought there was different lead singers, because
yes.
the vibe is so different with Papa 2 versus Papa 1. The way he carried himself and everything on stage and stuff.
Yeah, Papa 2, I would not like to like meet down a dark alley. I feel like he would fight me in a Denny's car park, whereas Copia, I feel like I could just kick him in the shin and he'd roll to the ground.
Oh, I wouldn't mind
Anyway,
living in a dark alley.
The way I've
well,
always seen it is that like Papa Emeritus 2, Secondo, whoever the fuck, Mr. Worldwide, like whenever you think of like a satanic pope or like an anti-pope or anything, like I feel like he is that look. Like he has like, because out of all the papas, he has like the skull paint. Like when you think
Yeah.
of skull paint, like you
Yeah.
probably think of like what Secondo looks like. And he just like, I don't know, like I feel like with Secondo he really nailed that like anti-pope look. And usually when people are making like ghost merch but they want like Papa on it, I tend to see like Papa Emeritus 2 the most, because he's the most creepy looking.
it's funny because Secondo's my least favorite Papa, but yeah, he's the one I've got tattooed on me. Again, I'm saying least favorite as in like I've got my top 5 foods, but there's still one that's going to be number 5, and then there's still stuff that's going to be number 6. You know what I mean? But yeah, Secondo's on my leg, bless him. Moving on to Perispero. Let's give a shout out to our pal Lizzie here, who suffers every day that they don't play this song live anymore. Again, I've got a couple of translations for this, but the one that kept cropping up the most was Through the Rough Hell. And it's a play on the popular phrase per aspera ad astra, which is through the hardship to the stars, which itself goes back to Lucius. We're in the Latin. The Lucius Annus Seneca, who was a Roman philosopher, playwright, and politician. I've got a little quote here from the commentary you can go listen to on Spotify, but just in case you don't want to do that. A nameless ghoul, you know who, says, it's basically a song that deals with human ambition. I almost said youth, but nowadays youth sort of encompasses everything from 15 years old to 45 years old, who are still, especially consider themselves a part of the youth culture, and their never dying ambition to become something else. If that is combined with any form of religious beliefs, it's surprisingly how unbeknownst they are to the fact that they are basically, in a biblical sense, worshipping the devil. I don't know what the fuck he's on about here, but okay.
No, I get it. Because like when you think about like the original like per aspera ad astra, it's like hard.
Yeah.
It in a religious sense, the Christians and stuff would use it as like astra is obviously like the geographical location in the stars where heaven is, you know? So like you're
I did not
struggling
know
through
that.
life. Yeah. So like you're struggling through life to get to heaven. So obviously this paraspora ad infera is basically, you know, the opposite of that. Like that's Papa wanting you to struggle to get to hell instead, you know? But like
Yeah.
it's that kind of what he's talking about is within like Satanism and stuff, the more like very loosely, it's more about worshiping the self and your
Yeah.
own ambitions.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
whereas Christianity and Catholicism is very much more about worshiping God. You know, looking outside yourself, like your own personal achievements don't matter. You know, that's why like
Yes.
obviously, you know, monks and nuns and they live lives of piety and stuff, you know, and lives of charity and things like
Yeah.
that there. But this idea of people having ambition and having, you know, these goals and stuff is, in a sense, is very satanic, you know? Like, and the struggle to get these goals is a satanic kind of idea, so.
That's kind of interesting you say that, because that almost like when you said that, it reminded me less so on the sort of Christianity side of things or the Catholicism side of things, but the actual thing that yeah, so there's this Swedish sort of mindset called Jantelagen, which is basically, to put it in simple terms, tall puppy syndrome, where you're not supposed to like think highly of yourself, you're not supposed to boast, you're not no better than anyone else, you're not supposed to have your own goals, which apparently a lot of Swedes say it makes like starting businesses and, you know, new things really hard.
Yeah,
But
I can
when you said that, it
imagine.
reminded me of that and his struggle with that. I don't know why.
No, that is that like it is that kind of feeling, you know, like having any ambition, like especially if that's a thing.
Massive thing, apparently.
Yeah, in Japan they have the same kind of sentiment where it's the nail that sticks out causes the most bother, you know.
Oh yeah.
Type that's not a direct like translate. I don't know what the actual Japanese for it is, and I'm not even going to attempt it. But it's the kind of thing of like, you know, kind of keep in line with
The
everybody
norm.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So like if he's growing up in a society where that's clearly like a big thing, the idea of him having this ambition to want to be a big rock star was probably something that was not, you know, common to talk about, or, you know. So like I like
Perhaps frowned
again,
upon.
yeah, and again like Satanism, like a very basic kind of thing of Satanism is self worship, self love, and self kind of, you know, the self is
Liberation.
more important. Yeah, the self is more important than, you know, like obviously there's, you know, the kind of newer versions of like the Satanic Church and stuff have you know, charity and stuff attached to it, you know, and fighting for rights and all this here. But the kind of base idea of Satanism is the self, is, you know, worship the self, not outside sources.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's such an interesting song. It's very simple as well.
Yeah. I didn't like it the first time I heard it.
Oh no, I loved it. But yeah, it's the one that sounds the most like a church song to me. You know, like
Yeah.
you'd hear people stand singing it in a hymn from a hymn book, you know, which is what makes Ghost unique in the sense of writing Satanism songs. Because, like we said in Opus, a lot of Satanism songs are just like, you know, Satan, yeah,
Ah.
grr, you know, whereas he's decided to go down the route of writing Satanism songs that are worship songs, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what makes them unique. I have a quote that Tobias said at Loudwire for it. He says,
Yeah.
doesn't really, he's like, it's, a lot of people would argue and say that it's what they do every day. I think that it's very, very common human fate. Without diving into talks of poor people or less fortunate, which is a separate discussion. It's about human ambition. It's the high horse way of saying, doesn't really matter, we're going to hell anyway, regardless of what you do. It's the modern phenomenon that's just with philosophy and partaking in whatever collective action that needs to be done to make a difference. Whatever that difference is, the unique individual has a tendency to always rely on the collective to do one thing, whereas I, as an individual, can do something else. Most people can collectively agree upon a solution being the best, but I have my career to do, so you do your thing. I'll just do mine. It doesn't matter. We're all going to hell.
Love that.
And you're like, it's sure, buddy.
Speak
Yeah,
for
it's that kind
yourself,
of
bruv.
yeah, but it's the
Yeah,
idea of like everybody waiting for everybody else to do a thing.
Yeah, got you.
yeah. You
You
might
know?
as well just go do what makes you happy, because according to some people, we're all gonna go to hell anyway, so you might as well be happy before you get there.
Because in the Catholic idea, we have the original sin, which is
Yes.
the sin of being born, and you're like, that's not my fault.
No, I didn't ask to be born.
So,
All right, so we move on to Secular Haze. This was actually teased and released a little bit earlier than the album, so on the 14th of December 2012, which I believe was the day before Papa One's last show, or was it the actual day? I feel like it's the day before. Don't quote me on that. A website called secularhaze.com was created by Ghost, and it sort of streamed, leaked. I think even the stems were leaked, so you could get the individual tracks as far as I remember. They are archived. I think if you can get to it through the Spillways Lounge now website to listen to them. That's really cool. Because there's like a clock track and everything that's used separately. And also there was an original version, which I'm not gonna lie, the mix is slightly better. There is a little bit of a thing with INFESTISSUMAM as a whole, just while we're on it, about the mix being like not the best and people want it remastered. But I digress. Anyway, I always first heard Clown when I first heard this, but according to the commentary, he says that it was meant to be maritime, moving in waves. Freezing to death is supposedly one of the best ways to die because as you reach close to the death, you suddenly feel warm. So you're stuck at a freezing sea. If you go back to Subvision, you can also hear like a little reference to this. We don't know if it's a reference just to Secular Haze in general or just like it's a little teaser to this idea maybe he had knocking about. But if you, instead of May, he says, go find your shelter in a Secular Haze. Yeah, it's I've got a quote here by Reddit user. Oh god, this is a weird username. Kwexler, KWEXXLER, who says it's a waltz, which means it's in 3/4 time, which is why it sounds more like a carnival. If we look at the lyrical content as well, bro has given us a year 7 RE lesson with the whole omnipotent, omnipresent thing. I don't know if this is just a British thing, but when you get to year 7 and you go to religious studies, that is one of the first things you learn is what omnipotent, omnipresent mean, all that, which just made me laugh. Like as soon as I hear those lyrics, I'm like, I'm in year 7 RE class again.
the video is also really interesting because it's I found a thing that said it's an homage to a live performance that the Doors did on Ed Sullivan. Like even the little stage stand-ups and everything that the ghouls are standing on. It's like if you go look at that performance, it's just a double kind of copy of that. And also as well, I like this song is very 60s. Like this is a very 60s sounding song.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those songs where like he is. I always find it very funny that he is so invested in like the sexual liberation of women. You know what I mean? Like he's because like I found it was on one of the websites. I found a thing they were talking about basically the second verse is him like leaning into that kind of 60s feeling again. Obviously the whole song's leaning 60s, but in the 60s that's whenever the women's lib kind of start kicking off. You know, because like this is like because the lyric it says when she's eye to eye with Spear. Like clearly that's just him saying when she's looking at a dick. This is his man. You know what I mean?
Never thought of that.
Yeah. And then it says with youth and innocence disappear, forever gone, And that's the idea of like, when women lose their virginity, they're not innocent anymore,
Yeah. Interesting.
Like I mean, I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
like,
I know what you mean.
Again, the Catholic thing of like, you have to protect your virginity, but like I kind of always have this thing where it feels like he always has this kind of like, especially like this whole like the whole of INFESTISSUMAM is about like lust and stuff like that. They're like it's probably the horniest album they have, and like again like because you have like Monstrous Clock and Gigolo and all this here, like so it's a very horny album.
Yeah.
And again and I just feel like it's this could just be the way I'm reading it, but I always kind of because like at that time like in the 60s and stuff, obviously you have the kind of the creation of the pill and things like that there, like
and free love and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you have all that kind of free love and women burning bras and things like that there, and my God, how have we gone backwards? But here we are. Yeah, I kind of just viewed it as a part of it is because as well there's a description of like whenever you're drowning at sea, like he says as well, like whenever you're drowning you kind of reach like a point where you heat up again, but it's almost orgasmic in a way. You know,
Of course he'd say that, but yeah, okay.
yeah, because it's like a release. You know,
Why
it's a
wouldn't he say
relief and a
that?
release. So, like,
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
it's very horny. You know, you're hornily drowning. You're drowning, but in a horny kind of way.
Speaking of horny, I feel like Cammy's gonna have a lot to say about this song because slut song, let's go. It's Gigolo it's Gigolo Ha Mejito. Mejito?
Yeah.
I have no idea what
Megiddo.
to say. Megiddo. Which again in the commentary they start sort of questioning it. So I've got Gul 1 says Ha Mejito is like, what's the word? Basic 2 words which, and then Gul 2 comes in saying it means the mountain Mahito, which is Tel Mahito. I'm still saying all this wrong, I don't care, sorry. In a city in Israel. I'm assuming he's talking about like older Israel, as in biblical Israel, not current day Israel, but digress. And he says, thus the bottom of the mountain of Mahito, the final battle between good and evil is to stand. Armageddon. That Armageddon. Yeah, so if this were a cheesy movie, it would be called Gigolo Armageddon, which is what the fuck? Bro's going off on a tangent here, basically, about a funny album title. The worship among female collective of these sort of guys that act and treat them like shit. So, a gigolo is a heterosexual prostitute male. And as we said, there's the word I can't say, which is an ancient city, but it's apparently more famous under its Greek name, Armageddon. Thus, the male prostitute of the apocalypse. There's so many fancy words that I've googled for this, like lascivious, which basically means producing sexual desire. Niveus, which is a sort of white snowy substance, and someone I can't find the Reddit user because it says it's deleted, but they put this comment which made me laugh, and it says, "Niveus, what is white? What is pearl white? Comes from a wand, as mentioned from the song." And someone who comes into the daughters of men like what would women want from that? And it's like one of my favorite lines that Cammy has ever said on this podcast was, "I'm horny and full of cum." It's basically the summary of this song.
It's literally what it says. When he says, I am the one lascivious, full of magic potion Niveus," he literally just says, "I'm horny and full of cum."
Yeah.
God damn it.
Not only am I horny, but I'll make you horny.
He just throws in so many like he just does that with like a lot of his songs now, where he'll just like put in like just these like fancy words and they just mean like the most like cornball shit. And then like I mean just the regular lyrics themselves, like I offer everything they seek, and I am the one who comes richly endowed, harvesting crops of fields that others have plowed. It's like, all right.
I love that line. I love
Okay.
that line so much.
Especially
Or
when he's doing it live in prequel.
Well, I didn't want to like bring up live too much. I want to try and focus a little bit more on the album, but I
Yeah.
have got to bring up the fact that during the Prickell era, he would wear the, if you know, the white suit, which
So
is like
pretty.
white is meant to be the most like virginal, purest color, and Bro's acting like a complete slag singing this song, wearing that with everything all out to see.
and he is the one who comes into the daughters of man, destroying all and make them want it again. It's such a horny song, and for what
It's
reason?
so good.
It is good.
I don't want to like talk about it like I guess too much because we're just focusing on the album itself. But it's kind of interesting how like you know obviously there's all of these songs here from Infestissimum, and obviously they're all supposed to be tied to Papa Emeritus too. But I just find it funny that like even though they don't really perform much of Infestissimum now, it's funny how like a lot of the songs are now kind of tied to the other frontmen. Like
Yeah.
for example, like Gigolo Megiddo, like when I hear that song, I mostly think of Cardinal Copia performing it in the white suit. Or
He gave us a reason to remember, to be fair.
yeah. And then also Terzo or Papa Emeritus 3, again, whichever you fancy, he did like an acoustic version of it. That's really popular. Cornucopia did an acoustic version too, but you know what I mean. And then for like the next song that we're gonna cover, Goulet and Zombie Queen. That one's famous with Terzo and Papa Emeritus 3, because he always performed it. He liked performing like acoustic versions as well, and he performed it with a kazoo. So I don't. It's just funny how like again like these are all like Papa Emeritus the second or two's songs, but they end up getting like tied to like other people.
Right.
It's really interesting. I mean, because you brought up that Megiddo, Armageddon, and it is like the final battle for like when the devil is supposed to be finally defeated, which I think is very interesting because it's like the gigolo of the final battle where the devil loses and God triumphs, but also interestingly in Revelation it talks about at this battle that there will be so much blood at this battle that like it comes up to the horses' withers as the horses
Okay.
are walking through. Like it's a very interesting juxtaposition of like this horrendous, horrible, awful battle and like, hey, let's go let's go fuck and have fun. It's a really interesting juxtaposition.
The whole album is kind of carrying on from Opus, because like the end of Opus is the birth of the Antichrist. So Infestissusam is kind of like, I always took Infestissusam as like the rise of the Antichrist,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like I always took this song as like from the perspective of the Antichrist, being like, I'm here to fucking have fun.
Yeah.
Like, because like it's kind of, I always find it interesting, like he didn't start out with an idea of having like a connected kind of storyline or anything, but it's really interesting that even because like this album was recorded in 2011 or like quite close to the end of whenever Opus Eponymous kind of released, and then didn't get released until 2013. So like even then, very early on, he was already kind of slowly connecting things. Yeah, like it's such a it's also as well, this album, what I love about it is it's he you could definitely hear, like, because I know he said when he went into making this album, he specifically went in with the idea of making something that didn't sound anything like Opus. Like he didn't want, because he talks a lot about good bands that have a great first album and then vanish because they can't make a good second album. So he was determined to make a really good second album, which he did. It
Mission
charted
accomplished.
really well and everything. Yeah, like it was, because the first album, I think the highest it ever got to was like 80 on the Swedish chart. Whereas Infestissusam, I have a list because I got it off Wikipedia, like a good researcher. Because like in the Billboard chart in the US, the Billboard 200, it got to 28, which for an album about the Antichrist and the end of the world is pretty good. It went to number 1 in the US hard rock albums. It went to number 1 in Sweden as well. It was the first number 1 in Sweden. It went gold in Sweden as well. So like he definitely achieved that, but you can hear him taking a lot of risks.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Sonically, and lyrically as well, he's taking a lot of risks. Because he said as well, like the first album was him, because I think he said a couple of times that he found it very juvenile, some of the things the way he wrote, So this is him. I think he said as well, he realized he could kind of write outside of himself, like, so he was expanding his own kind of songwriting net, as it was. Yeah, he did a great job with it. 10 out of 10.
Speaking of juvenile, let's go on to the kazoo song. It's like what Cami was just saying. So, of course, we're talking about Goulet/Zombie Queen. How, like you say, this is now associated more with Terzo, at least for a lot of us, than Secondo. I've got a quote here that says, Lyrically, the literal meaning is not doesn't. Sorry, I've wrote this down literally as he said it, and it's really weird. So I'm just going to try and pretend to be him. Lyrically, the literal meaning doesn't really. It has a deeper meaning, but the literal meaning is not as deep. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? It has a very classic sort of horror choice of words. Words for a puppet to sing over a cool song. The subliminal meaning of the song is about the embracing of the past, and the nostalgia, and the idea of putting things on a pedestal. And I have another quote here from Loudwire, which says she, which is quite interesting. I'll get to that later. She is the romanticized idea of either being or a time being lost. It's about nostalgia, the absence of time or a person or a being or something that has a tendency to fog up the idea of what the actual nature of that thing or person is. I have been out on the road for a month. I'm longing to go home. Right now, my home is more and more dreamlike. Not that I don't remember how it looks, but it has this bold and beautiful filter on it. It makes it look a little more shiny. It has a golden filter on it. Nostalgia is a very interesting thing, and it creates wonders and destroys the mind. Now, this is going to be very, very loose here because I'm not very good with research, as you can tell. But I've took a few screen grabs from good old Wikipedia. There was another ghost podcast. I really am terrible. I forgot to write down who it was. But they brought up the idea of this song being about Lilith, who was, as far as I'm aware, in Jewish texts, rather than Adam and Eve, it was Adam and Lilith, I think. I might be wrong. Please don't
Adam's first
come for
wife.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was his wife.
who then later became a succubus, which I had to Google what that was because I wasn't very. I'm dumb.
You just.
I'm not very well educated on religion, which is either a good or bad thing, depending on
It's
the
a good
context
thing.
of this. So, I found that quite interesting because when you then look at if you take that into thought while you're reading lyrics, there's a lot that actually does kind of make sense.
I never thought of
And
that. That's yeah. Lilith is
yeah,
always really interesting because I love the kind of comical idea of two people being made. There's only two humans on this planet, and Lilith
yeah,
looked at Adam and went, "I'd rather
smash.
not."
Oh,
No, she didn't
rather
want
not.
to. That's the whole point. She did.
Oh,
The whole
really?
point of Lilith is that she wouldn't lie underneath Adam. You know.
And then
She
she
kind of
went
went.
she went with Lucifer.
Yeah.
Oh,
She
so it
basically
wasn't
got
like
kicked
the
out of the
apple,
garden. No, she got
like
kicked
in
out of the garden
Genesis.
because she had an opinion.
Ah,
Because in Jewish text, she was made from the same ash that Adam was,
right.
rather than the rib like Eve. Because Eve was then made from a rib to make her more subservient.
Yeah.
That worked out well. But yeah, Lilith is basically, she's supposed to be like the queen of all demons. Like she's the mother of all demons. So she is,
Ah.
Because basically it was like Lucifer kind of went to her because she got kicked out of the garden, and then Lucifer kind of went to her and was like, "If you give me an army of demons, you can rule in hell." And she was like, "Fair, I'll do that."
Sounds good to me, bud.
But I just think it's really funny. But I was just think it's always really funny, just the idea of two humans on this planet, and both women were like, "Nah," at Adam. So it's like I blame Adam for everything that went wrong.
Yeah, hot take. This is not one of my favorite ghost songs. I know it's a lot of people's favorites. It's not mine, if I'm honest.
I appreciate it. Like I appreciate what he was trying to do. It's not one of my favorites either because it's very long.
It is very long. And it does have some fun moments. Like I do like it. I don't dislike it. It just kind of it's a strong break from kind of the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Though I will say that I like it better than, and I'm probably gonna get murdered over this opinion. I like it better than Idolatrine. I like it better than Idolatrine. To me, Idolatrine is the weakest song on the album. So
I
Zombie
think I'm
Queen
inclined to
is
agree, actually.
definitely definitely better than that.
I think personally as well, for me, and this is either I can't decide whether this is a good or a bad thing. The kazoo version has somewhat tainted it for me. because I can't take it as serious. I can't listen to it without thinking of that fucking kazoo, which is both amusing and like. But now I can't listen to the song as it's intended. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but here we are. Thanks, bro.
It works really well as well because you have to like the way that Tobias thinks about albums. He thinks about them in the sense of being on vinyl, and he knows exactly how long an album has to be on a vinyl, like to cover both sides with enough, to kind of give it enough
Yeah.
space. Like he knows exactly. So it works really well because this is the last song on side A. So it's a nice break,
it is
like you said,
actually.
Katie.
Yeah.
So it works really well as kind of like bringing you to the end of the first side of the album. Like the kazoo, like you said, like the kazoo has kind of tainted it a little bit because I can't unsee that close-up shot of him from that one performance, and also the fact that when that was clearly the first time he did it, and you can hear him trying not to laugh because he knows it's funny. Because it wobbles, and like when he breathes into it, you hear him wobble because he's trying not to laugh.
Why did he wake up and choose that choice?
I have no idea. That is
I'm
like one of
glad
the
he
most.
did, but
Yeah, I think that like this is just me speculating. I feel like it's a bit of a rebellion a little bit because he didn't want to do those because they said basically it was like a peacekeeping thing that to do these like acoustic kind of records shop like little tour thing that he did. Like he didn't want to do it. Like if he said if he was going to do an acoustic set again, it'd be like a proper like acoustic setup, kind of like whenever Nirvana did MTV Unplugged.
Oh, the Unplugged, yeah.
Yeah, like that was the kind of way he said he'd do it again. He would never do that record shop thing again. So I feel like the kazoo is kind of him fighting back a little bit, Because like if you, it's also funny. Like I know you don't want to talk about the live stuff too much, but it's funny when you watch him doing that live. He's trying to work the floor of a group of people, like especially in some shops that were just full of people that didn't know who the fuck they were.
Yeah, he said you just popped in for coffee and you're just here, like sort of thing.
Yeah, now you see this, like afternoon entertainment. But like he it is very funny. I do feel like the kazoo might have been a bit of like a little middle finger, like I'm not taking this too seriously type thing,
Love it.
And that's probably why he picked Zombie Queen as well, because it's such a weird song to do live like that. Like it's like with 3 guitars on stage, it works a bit better, because you have the audience kind of giving you the rhythm. I used to love the thing he used to do when he handed out the percussion stuff.
Oh yeah,
the shakers and all.
Audience participation.
Yeah, he's like, who's here to keep in rhythm? And then handing them like little drumsticks and stuff. But I always feel like the kazoo was a bit of a rebellion because he didn't want to do it, So I'm not taking it too seriously. It's just us having fun. Kazoo,
love it.
I like the song. I know it's not everyone's favorite. Like, it's funny how you said how you felt like you were in the minority or whatever when you were saying how like it's not one of your favorite songs, where I feel like a lot of people don't really like it because it is so long, and like the first part, like the Goulet part, just sounds like it's so slow. And I will admit that it is kind of on the slower side, but I don't know, it's fun, and it was my ringtone for a long time.
Well, I guess contrasting with that, then we then go on to what has now become the only song played live from INFESTISSUMAM, which is, I think it's a staple at this point, and I think it would be weird if they didn't play it, but of course we're talking about Year Zero. This became a TikTok sound for a while, and not necessarily the original, like that weird cover of that woman doing it with. I just fucking loved it. Was used on Pets. It was like the most like evil looking picture of Pets to be apparently, again, I've not seen the film. I'm working on it. I don't. When I was researching this the other day, because of course it's about the coming of the Antichrist. There's apparently a reference to Rosemary's Baby because
there is.
It says the quote I wrote down is "God is dead, Satan lives. This is year one. This is year one."
Yeah,
and that's so it implies year zero is it's just before he's born type thing.
Yeah,
I think
because
at
even
least that's what I
whenever
got
they,
down.
yeah, because actually, weirdly enough, I watched that last night. But there's a bit whenever they're celebrating the new year coming in, and he says again, like year one, and I jokingly said it's like, oh, year zero just happened, like, but yeah, like yeah, that's definitely a Rosemary's Baby thing. That's really funny. I'd never actually, I didn't think that was
Yeah,
actually real.
I didn't notice until I was researching this, to be honest. I know it was like kind of because obviously there's that reference to whole like you had AD and then you had BC, and obviously it was to do with like Jesus and his.
Mhm.
Well, I can't remember. It's to do. It was from Jesus's birth, isn't it? Not his death. That we start after denomination, right?
Yes, it's the
Yeah,
year of our Lord Anno Domino.
that's the one. Um, I didn't want to discuss too heavily this, but I feel like we've got to, and I've just wrote down on my notes. Music video. Discuss.
Great video. I really like it. It's very simple.
I really like that end bit. If I'm just gonna say it, I really like the end.
I like I like the collection of ladies that he has in the video, because they're a collection of ladies that you wouldn't normally see in a rock music video. Like there's a lot of older ladies.
Yeah,
I
do
also
you have that?
appreciated that.
Don't you have that quote that you sent us the other day about
Yeah,
with the
I'll pull
Infestissuman
it up.
era?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds, I'll pull it up. Yeah, I found thanks to Slavgul, they uploaded an old screenshot from a Kerrang magazine interview they did, which is him talking about like the tenets of ghosts, like kind of like, and he's holding like two, stones like Ten Commandments. And one of them that I thought was really interesting was number 2, where it says, "Thou shalt tell a pentagram from a pentagram." There's a lot of misunderstanding about us. We have magazines say, "We want Papa standing there and he'll be surrounded by naked chicks." No, he won't. But you had naked chicks in pictures before. Yes, but that was a naked 30-year-old. They can't tell a nipple from a nipple and a pentagram from a pentagram. What we do is all about context. And I find that very interesting, because like he doesn't want to be surrounded by teenagers, basically.
Yeah, like he's not a creep when we love him for that. And like you
Yeah.
say in the Year Zero music video, you've got like you've got a typical sort of like model-esque girl, but then you've also got older people, you've got like sort of mid-sized people, and it's like
Yeah.
even bear in mind this was 2013, like, and I know like
Mhm.
technically even from back then we have come a long way in terms of that. So the fact that back then, stunning.
Yeah, but
I
also
love
as
that
well,
man's
like
brain.
even that model-esque girl, like she's clearly in her 30s. Like she is
Yeah.
clearly an
Yeah.
older girl. Like, and I think as well, like he just like it's also as well like was Papa 2, the kind of debut of Papa 2 having 2 outfits. You know, I love that. Like I know we always joke about calling him Mr. Worldwide and stuff because he kind of looks like Pitbull, but like I really love like he look especially in that video because it's black and white.
Yeah, it looks
I
more.
love, yeah, like when he sits down on the chair. I love the shot of him when he sits down on the chair. And he kind of has his hand out, and like one of the girls grabs his hand. Like it's so good. Like it's again very simple, but like I love it. Like I love that video. Like I know everybody always talks about like the end shot, where if he flashes or whatever.
His willy's out.
Yeah.
Isn't
But
it
I
also
don't.
a reference to the Omen, if I'm remembering correctly?
It's probably because he's
Loosely.
obsessed with the Omen.
Yes.
I want to talk about the single cover for Year Zero, because
Oh, go
it's
ahead.
based on the painting by John Miller, Satan's Throne, which is
Yeah.
from Paradise Lost. It says the poem itself concerns itself about the fall of man, the temptation of Adam and Eve by the fallen angel Satan, and then their expulsion from the garden. And I just love that picture. I love that album cover. It's probably one of my favorite little single covers. And again, it's one of those things that's like a kind of running theme through all of the single and album covers, that they always reference like something, and I love it. Like it's like I've been looking to try and buy the picture disc for Year
Yeah.
Zero, because also thinking about the vinyl, on the vinyl, the A side you have Year Zero playing normal, and then on B
Oh, and it's
side it's backwards.
yes.
That's
that.
great because when I first seen it, I did not, my brain didn't click that it was Year Zero, like the actual B-side title was Year Zero backwards. Because I was like, what
Yeah.
the fuck is that? And then I listened to it, I was like, oh, duh, backmasting again. But yeah, Year Zero is great.
I just love Year Zero. It's such a good song.
It's another song that like kind of gets tied to other frontmen, just because whenever I hear Year Zero, I only think of how like both Cardinal Copia and Papa Emeritus 4, they do the little serpent deceiver thing where they'll just like wiggle their finger like a dick.
Helicopter.
Helicopter.
Yes, definitely. All
I just
right.
hope they never get it wrong. Good.
Oh, I know, especially because I've had my eyebrows singed about 1 billion times every time I've seen it live. If you're front row and Year Zero starts playing, shield your eyes for if you burn easily. Just saying. Anyway, moving on to Body and Blood. I've got a quote here that says, "It deals with the irony of digestion, and especially from a religious point of view, where you are actually digesting the body of Christ in order to sort of do this solemn act of holiness. And whatever comes in must come out. Though there is I don't know why it's wrote down like this, but I got it like that. Like backside to that. And so it's about that. And it's a song basically about cannibalism, a ballad about cannibalism. Which I did think that whenever people do the whole, like, this is the body of Christ, this is the blood of Christ, I'm like, it's giving cannibal for a, like, very religious ritual.
I always felt like Body and Blood could have been a Repugnant song quite easily.
Really? I find it quite a, well, I suppose,
No,
yeah.
if you kind of like the lyrics themselves, if you just take the lyrics and like put them on a Repugnant album with like obviously the Repugnant sound, like
But
you didn't really much change need much. Yeah, like you wouldn't need to change very much.
Yeah,
You know, like
it's very ode to cannibalism.
yeah.
Anyway, again, not going into too much of the live stuff, but the fact they used to bring the Sisters of Sin on for this, bring it back, please.
Please bring it back.
It's so good.
This is also the first of 2 songs where he just talks about poop.
Can you go into that, because it didn't click when you first mentioned this?
So in Body and Blood, like, you know, when they get to like the bridge where it's like, you know, receive, consume, and then he's like, defecate.
Yes.
Yeah.
How could I forget?
Yeah, it's because it's that thing of like you're eating the body of Christ. It's meant to be really holy, but then
And
you're
you're
just
gonna shit 'em
shitting it out after. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it, like he's not wrong where it is kind of weird. You know.
You know, I never really thought about that until right now. So thanks for putting that in my head.
You're welcome. It's cannibalism with all of the steps.
But also, maybe I'm just very weird, but this song is really hot.
Oh no, you're
It
not
is
weird. I get it.
It's really sexy.
I don't know, like I just like I don't know. It's really cool, and it's like kind of like, you know, it's the satanic version of like, you know, receiving the Eucharist. And like when they used to, again, don't want to bring up too much live stuff, but like when they used to perform it live, it just like it really kind of sold this whole like evil church gimmick.
Yeah.
I liked it. And yeah, there was something. I mean, this whole album is just kind of like hot and like
Very true.
Infestissimum as a whole. Like I know we'll talk about this later when we get to the next album, and you talk about how like, you know, Papa 3 Terzo, he kind of brought in like the slut era of Ghost. I but like I kind of find that with Secondo or Papa 2, he kind of like set the blueprints for that, because like
Yeah.
because I didn't really find like with Opus like it to be like very like sexual. Like I mean, you could say that like maybe like Elizabeth and Prime Mover had like kind of like some erotic tones to it if you want to think about it that way. But I feel like Infestissimum really kind of like brought in that era of like, we are okay with sex. We are very okay with sex. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, I feel like Infest was more reproductive, biological, scientific type of discussion. By ghost standards anyway. Like,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's exactly like what you say. This one's more horny.
Yeah. And it's almost kind of like, you say that Terzo kind of brought in the sluttiness. It's like Terzo like shows up wearing a baby slut tee, like crop top, but Secondo is like a really hot guy in like a 3-piece suit.
Yep.
Perzo is I will bring her home by 9. Secondo is she calls me daddy now.
Yes, she calls me daddy too.
If you want to have the discussion, he's like a daddy dom kind of guy.
Very
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Speaking of, no, I don't know how to make a connection now. I was trying to make a
Speaking of
joke.
shit.
Yeah, speaking of shit, we got idolatry, and I'm not just saying shit because I think it's the weakest song. I'm just saying this because it literally means like the latter part of the song means toilet.
Yeah, it's literally about poop.
Yeah, so we got down. Yeah, idolatry. I don't know. It's a made-up word, basically. It comes from idolatry and latrine. The church, throughout all these years, has quite openly looked down upon its followers in a way that sometimes is absolutely amazing. How openly people subject that sort of disgraceful resentment from whomever they're bowing to. So that is what the song is about. It's the church convincing people of lies and making them feel like shit, which obviously Tobe has also said that that's the opposite of what Ghost does. They want people to feel good about themselves, etc.
Yep.
And that's that. Week's all
Yeah.
over. No, has anyone else got anything to say on this other than it is what it is?
I always viewed as well like the line suffer little children to come unto me is a flip obviously of the Bible verse, let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom
Oh.
of heaven belongs to such as them. But I always took that as like the fact that the Catholic Church is probably one of the biggest pedophile rings that ever existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
That, like the idea that the church is like openly hiding these men doing this to children while looking down on their followers for existing. Like, it's probably one
Yeah.
of the biggest bits of hypocrisy that's ever existed.
Yeah,
You
fuck if
know?
you're gay, but nonce, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, that's fine.
Yeah, you're going to hell for being gay, for not believing in God, which the concept of God is such a huge thing anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to go to hell because you're out of wedlock having kids. But this
Yeah.
priest who's a nonce, who's hurting children, he's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. He can confess later and it'll be okay. You know, and I always felt like idolatry was always also like a little poke at that. You know.
I was gonna say, especially since he pointed, without getting too deep into it, 'cause we'll get to that once we get to this album. It's obviously in Kaiserian when he talks about the choir boys on suite, so he's aware of it being an issue.
It's horrific. It's like, and again, like I'm Irish, so like the way children have been treated in like the Magdalene kind of convents as well. Like these women coming in out of wedlock and being promised that their children would be taken care of, and then like decades later finding bodies of children underneath like cistern tanks and stuff. You know, it's one of the kind of it's just one of those topics, and I sonically, idolatry is probably not one of my favorite Ghost songs, but I love the concept of the song. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
the more we're discussing it, the more I'm thinking, actually, yeah, that is quite deep. And yeah,
like
that makes
it's him making a joke about I am the worship of idols is shit, basically, because like obviously idolatry is the worship of idols, latrines, and I love that. It's probably one of my favorite made up words he's ever made up, because it's I just think it's it's so smart, But
So him.
yeah, it's so him, but it's so smart. Like, it's probably one of my favorites because he makes up words all the time. Like, he'll just, obviously have like kaleidoscopian is my second favorite. I love that. But yeah, like, I love the theme of this song. And again, like, when I say it's not one of my favorites, it, like you said yourself, like, it's not, doesn't mean I hate this song. Like, I'm like, oh god, it's on now. Like,
Yeah.
I'll listen to it, but like, obviously there's other songs even on this album that I'll want to go listen to a bit more. But it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably one of the kind of smarter songs that he's written, like, theme wise. I just kind of wish it had been executed a little bit differently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, weirdly, I have the same sort of feeling a little bit about the next song, Depth of Satan's Eyes. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a hot take or not. This sounds like I don't like any Ghost song ever the way I'm talking. I promise you I do. I just like there's going to be ones I'm slightly more critical of because especially with the later albums, those are the ones I tend to lean towards. But
Yeah.
we plow
And
on.
also, as well, you have said that Infestism isn't your favorite Ghost album, so you're going to have more critical
Less,
opinions
yeah,
of songs on that album, so that makes sense,
yeah,
But I
because
agree with you with Depths of Satan's Eyes. Yeah, like, I fully agree.
you know what gave me like a new sort of perspective on it was that video that I hadn't seen before that surfaced of Secondo singing it live and doing the higher harmonies, and I was like, oh, stunning. So yeah, I think it's one of those songs I prefer live than actually on the album, which is not very common.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's a
Same for
lie with
me,
Ghosts.
honestly. Because for some reason, the album version reminds me of my dad. Like, the way my dad used to sing in church, he would do this thing, like, he
Oh,
thought it
okay.
was so cool to, like, I don't know, hold his S's for some reason. Like, oh, I sound so cool singing in church like this. So, like, the way that he holds his S's a lot in Depth of Satan's Eyes, is just like, oh, this sounds like my dad singing in church. I can't.
Oh, and then I suppose like what Cammy was saying, we've got another feces reference.
Mhm.
The swamp of
This one.
feces, that is the world flatulates a whirlwind storm in which you swirl.
We got poop and farts.
I just realized all three poop songs are one right after each other. You know what I mean?
He's like, let's get all the poop out of the way all at once.
Can I have a little poop break for a second?
I hate him.
Yeah, it's
Shall we
not one
move
of
on?
the stronger songs, so it's not really much to say about it because it's basically just,
Yeah.
Because I wrote it's like a song basically where the narrator is saying how amazing Satan is, and he's the way, and to kind of move away from the lies of the Bible. Like, that's basically what it is.
Yeah. Well, then let's move on to a loved song,
Mm-hmm.
and that is Monstrous Clock. So this is the closing of the album. It was also a closer of the live shows quite a while. So Monstrous Clock. The literal meaning is traditional satanic rituals, sort of the process of, and then it's got clicks tongue, that happening. I don't know what he meant by that. Again, I need to listen to the like. No, I know. I just mean like what he's putting that in replacement of. Like if he, the literal meaning is traditional satanic rituals, the sort of process of that happening. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know what he.
I think
I
he means
thought it
sex.
was.
I think that means sex. Like,
I've.
you
Yeah,
know.
he's trying to be PC.
Polite.
Anyway, yeah. The sense morale of the song is about people coming together in a carnal sense to procreate the devil's son. So we're back to the beginning, basically, where sex and procreation has throughout many years has been regarded as like the ultimate sin and the end of mankind. That's why people throw acid in each other's faces, cut off their noses, kill each other, disown their children, and so on and on and on and on forever. Wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's also like he says celebrates the female orgasm and stuff, so go him.
Yet another song that's kind of associated with with other papas. Mostly, this is another one where Terzo Papa 3, whoever, really made this song his own as well. Because
Right,
before he would ever sing this song, he would talk about like he would do a whole birds and the bees monologue. And then talk about like, will you promise to go fuck each other? And then like play Monstrous Clock and say, this is about the female orgasm.
Bring it back. I've never seen this song live. I'm so sad.
I have seen it live. It is very, very good live. And because I've seen this live, I'm also kind of like, I don't want to say bitter, but like, I get kind of annoyed how like Square Hammer is now the closer. If we're talking about the current shows, because like I love Square Hammer, which we'll get to later, but Monstrous Clock was just like a really
Monstrous what?
really
Sorry,
good.
you said Monstrous Cock.
Sorry, a little Freudian slip there. Monstrous Clock is a superior closer in my opinion.
It very much is. Sorry,
Yes.
I just thought that was funny.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no.
I feel like he did that on purpose. He
Oh.
absolutely did it on purpose.
Oh yeah, it's
100%.
100% wordplay. Yeah, but like the Monsters clock is actually like a real thing. Like
Yeah, I've
it's
seen
a
them.
Catholic object. Yeah. So like that man saw one and went, that kind of sounds like Monsters cock. Like filed it away in his
Juvenile
brain for
twat.
later. You know. But like I said, like the clocks were used in like Catholic ceremony as a way to pay homage to Christ. But obviously everything with Ghost is to kind of flip it on its head, where it's paying homage to the Antichrist. Man loves the Antichrist. Like I understand why he loves the Omen series. Like yeah, because one thing about the Antichrist, I remember reading the thing where he's talking about it, where he weirdly related to Damien in a way, like because he said that like as a kid that was kind of an outsider, that was into this kind of stuff, Damien was kind of a bit of a role model almost, and I find that hilarious to think about a teenage like preteen Tobias Forge watching Omen being like, yeah, I'd do that shit too if I was him. I just love his whole thing about the Antichrist because he just loves the Omen series. just wanted Damien to win.
Alright, so then we've got a little bonus track called La Mantra Mori, which is Latin for the death mantra / death chant. And it's literally such a simple song. It's literally 4 lines. It's we focus on your death, we focus on your death. You share not the blood of ours, thus we focus on your death. But like for a whole 3 minutes in this hypnotic sort of LSD trippy song.
Maybe because I haven't listened to it a lot. I don't like this is generally a Ghost song. I don't like it. I don't like
I must
it.
admit, I don't particularly. I need more because I expect it to do the chant. I don't get the point of it being continuous chanting because it's a mantra, but I always expect it to go into like a little verse and then go back into the chant. Someone though, I took a screenshot. Again, the user is deleted, but it's still got the comment on Reddit, and it says, "Look up coffin initiation. It's an old tradition used in many secret societies. I've never done it myself, but I have to say it's a good method of weeding out the undesirable flies." And then someone put obviously underneath saying, "I think you hit the nail on the head. There's quite a bit of Masonic influence in ghost music, particularly pub star." We're on to you, Forge.
You like the secret clubs.
Yes. Well, if we've not got much to say on that, or Cammy, you had something to say on this, didn't you?
No, not really.
Okay. Well then,
it's there. It's a song.
Yeah.
So sports. Shall we move on to if you have ghosts, since this is kind of part of that era?
Yes, I love this EP.
Right. So, if y'all aren't aware, If You Have Ghosts was the kind of accompanying EP for this era. all covers. It consists of, I may get the order of this wrong, so please correct me. Is it If You Have Ghosts, I'm a Marionette, Crucified, and Waiting for the Night? And sometimes there's a bonus track of a live version of Secular Haze, if I remember correctly, but gloss over that. Did I miss any?
No, I think you got them.
Yeah. So yeah. I suppose quick talk on the cover. The album cover rather, well the EP cover. Nosferatu, but Papa.
Paparazzi.
Love that. Paparazzi. We start off with Rocky Erickson's If You Have Ghost. And again, this is one of those songs where he's gone and done it. He's made it better than the original.
Yep.
Yeah.
He does that a lot. He's very good at it.
Yep.
I just think it's really cool how like I feel like he just covered the song just because like, you know, he likes the original song and it's like, you know, oh, if you have ghosts and we're called ghosts.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of I feel like he just kind of picked it like just because like there was no really like rhyme or reason for it. Because he tends to do that with his covers. He just picks songs that he likes sometimes that he thinks would work with Ghost. But it's really interesting how that song is turned into like a really big thing with the fandom where they'll say like if you have Ghost you really do have everything, and people like use it when they talk about how much Ghost has done for them, and it's become like a very like emotional song within the fandom. And and it's funny how like he really that wasn't his intention and that wasn't what he expected would happen, and it's kind of beautiful how it has turned into that to the point where he brought it back for the LA shows and it was like a very moving moment.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, the fact that I think, again, to touch on this really quickly, but like, because I know we spoke about it a lot, at LA, that whole thing with that becoming almost like a tagline. Like, I know one of the reasons I got upset, not upset as in a bad thing. I just mean like, as in
Emotional.
why I can't. Yeah, the reason I got so emotional at the LA shows was because it is literally like, again, not going too deep into it because like we could be here all day for me discussing it, but like before Ghost, I was nearly not here, and you know that was like so emotional. But then to see Tobias get emotional singing that song on one of the biggest nights of his life in terms of his performance, again, it's like I think that hits him just as much as it hurts us. That tagline.
He's
Beautiful
talked a
song.
lot about he's talked a lot about himself, about not feeling like he belonged. And he's created a space where not only has he found belonging, but like everybody that's like, you don't really hear any Ghost fans that are just like, Ghost fans aren't the kind of fans where you kind of sort of like Ghost, you know? Like everybody, when they get into Ghost, it just becomes this huge thing. Like it becomes so much more than just a spooky Satan band. Like you find like you connect with so many people, like we've talked before, like a lot of, you know, people, like a lot of Ghost fans have a lot of religious trauma that they got worked through with Ghost. They have, like, obviously there's like a lot of gender things, there's a lot of, you know, just in general, just kind of everybody's connected with each other. And it's kind of funny, like he only picked If You Have Ghosts because it's like, oh, it's got ghosts in the title, you know. And it's he's inadvertently like created like such a beautiful like little anthem for Ghost fans. He's like, the amount of like photos you see at tours and stuff of people making like flags and stuff that say, no, if you have Ghost you have everything. And it is really beautiful, like. And like also, this is probably one of my favorite songs from the acoustic set stuff that they did. Like he
Definitely
sounded
better
so
acoustic.
good. Yeah. I think it sounds great, like on the album and acoustically, but like he sounds so good on it, you know, like acoustically, like having it fully stripped back to just having just a couple of guitars and him singing. It's it's such a beautiful song anyway, because I think it's dealing with the fact that Rocky Erickson had DID, I think.
Yeah, I did. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Like,
dealing with that kind of condition and how he felt, you know, having it. You know, so it's such a haunting song anyway. He seems to take songs that are very simple and then
Yeah.
fills them, you know, in his mind. Because, like, obviously, when we get there, I'll talk forever on it. But, like, Avalanche is a perfect example of him doing that, because the Leonard Cohen version of it is very simple, and then he fills it with, you know, more noise and stuff. And I love his versions of covers, because he's very respectful to the original, you know. But then he makes it his own, and like, he's probably one of the best cover artists ever. Like, I'm so glad that this is a thing that they started to do, where they'd have covers on every album, because it makes me excited to hear what that era's covers is going to be. You know, so yeah, it's great, beautiful song.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for everyone to hear the orchestral version of it.
Oh god, it's the peak version. I'm sorry. Once this comes out, that's gonna blow every other version out of the water. I'm
so
sorry. It
excited.
was phenomenal. I could cry thinking about it.
Like, I wasn't there. I don't know, you know, anything about it, but I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna have a really bad time in that. I'm just gonna like cry. I'm just gonna cry, and it's
I
gonna be
will
fine.
say get the tissues out, because I don't cry in public very often, and both nights there was snot coming out my nose. I was red-faced, sobbing, literally. It's a good job we were like at the back, like technically at that moment, because I was, and the cameras weren't focusing on us, because oh fucking hell, gross.
I can't confirm. You had a moment, and I was like, I put my arm around you, like, we have everything.
We literally did have in that moment when he was like, "If you have ghosts, you have everything," and you've like flown. I know this is a little bit more specific for me personally, but you've flown like 5,000 miles to see this band on their like biggest show of their career and stuff, and like this is a band that have like saved you, and you're just in a room full of people and singing "If you have ghosts, you have everything," and then man starts crying, you're gonna sob. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. How could you not?
Yeah. But then on the flip side, let's go to ABBA.
Not as
I mean,
emotional, but
not as emotional. Again,
I really like this.
I like the song. Again, I think I slightly prefer it to the original. I fucking love ABBA, no shade to ABBA. But yeah, this slaps. This version slaps.
Like, ABBA's such a great band.
And it's also like, isn't it like quite? Because I was kind of like, how does this work? Because it's talking about like being a puppet in like the music industry. But then I suppose if you're like the Antichrist and you're the puppet for Satan, that kind of
Well,
fits.
I think he said, I think I remember him talking about it. He says, like, it's supposed to be like the way religion has people, puppeting people.
That makes sense.
You know, like, he's very like anti-organized religion. Like, he's not anti-religion in a sense of if it makes people feel good. He's against the organizations that take advantage of people, which same, same, bro. But like, yeah, I always took I'm a Marionette as like a priest or something puppeting their congregation on how you should feel about things, and
Stunning.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like, ABBA's just such a, like, I think people kind of don't give ABBA the credit they deserve, because I think people just kind of look at ABBA and go, oh, it's ABBA, but like,
Dancing Queen, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, silly Swedish band, okay,
yeah,
and then they move on.
but their songs are like, the lyrics are amazing. Like, the songs themselves, they sound amazing. Like, the amount of like bangers that they have is astronomical. You know what I mean? Like, they're such a good band, and I really love that he really appreciates them. Like, I love that he thinks they're like one of the best bands ever. And he's not ashamed to admit it.
ABBA's one of those bands, without like going too deep into this, they're like, if you look past the hits and the singles and listen to the albums, there's stuff that isn't like known to like the greater public, because they're not like played on the radio 50 times a week. That is so much better than the hits, and the hits are great. I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just
The
saying
hits are
like
hits for a reason.
yeah, but like stuff like The Visitors, I feel like doesn't get enough credit. It's ah. But it's that thing where he was saying like there's in a lot of ABBA songs there's that traditional Swedish folk element to it, and I think he wants to kind of keep a bit of home in his music by taking influence from stuff like that.
He also just thinks they're great writers, like I think it was one of the funny interviews he did where they asked him what was his album of 2023, and he picked
Oh
the ABBA
yeah.
album that came out the year before.
Yeah.
Like he
Love
was like,
that.
and they just talked about ABBA for ages, like it's like no album from 2023. Nope, this ABBA album from 2022.
Well,
okay, sure.
speaking of gay icons, because ABBA are a gay icon, let's be real.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the next song, which I think is one of my favourite covers they've ever done, which is
The
Crucified by
Dracula
Army of
voice.
Lovers. I see in the deepest darkness, I wrestled with the gods.
Oh
I
yeah,
They
love
went
it.
full Russell Brand on that.
I love it.
He just went full
Riding,
Dracula, like
raining cats and dogs.
His
So good.
inflection completely makes that song.
And then there's that quote as well about Crucified where he said he wanted to bring gay into metal, a bit of homoeroticism into metal, and it's
Oh,
I
I
love
love him for
that.
that.
I love that for him. Like
Yeah.
I know I know he never does, but he's only ever done. I think the only cover they've ever done live, obviously, is like If You Have Ghosts, and then Jesus He Knows Me.
There is a
Is there any
version
more?
of they did do I'm a Marionette live a few times, I think, during Secondo's era.
Yeah, and then Here Comes the Sun as well. But I would love to have heard him try to do this live. Like, I would love to have heard him try to like, at least once, just to try to get it,
Bias, bring it for the gays, please.
Yeah, it's
The
great. I
gay.
love the original as well of that. I love them like the original band, Army of Lovers.
Yeah. I mean,
But
it's tricky to discuss the covers because like they obviously in terms of like fitting it into the thematics Ghost use, and like we can't say Toe pick this because of this and this reason for sure, because he's never really fully said, and you can't really pinpoint without losing the meanings how, especially because when he I think was it Hanging Around, he said like, oh, I just picked it because it said Christ in it like one time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
But having
wow,
said that, yeah.
he did go into detail about why he picked a lot of these songs, because he said like he wanted to pick. There was another song of from Army of Lovers. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's something Possession. He said that
Yeah.
that's the better song, but Crucified worked better because it, like all the covers he picks, they have to have some type of thing that would work with Ghost.
Oh
Like
yeah,
work within the.
There's still like it's thought out. It's just not
Yeah.
sometimes things are just a bit more on the nose than potentially.
Yeah, but this is very on the nose, Crucified, because obviously like Jesus got crucified,
Yeah.
obviously, like but like it's like he has kind of gone into some detail about like why he picked these songs for this album, because there was that article where he talked about it. Like these little bits when we talk about the EPs, it's more just us going like that's just great,
Yeah.
like wow, I love this one. I love the original band, I can't think of any of the covers that I don't like, because like there's been covers
Well,
where I first listened to them and I'm like, but then like as more time I listen.
Funny enough, get ready
This
for
next one.
this is the cancellation period. Waiting for the Night is the only Ghost song where I actively skip. And I'm
fair.
sorry. See, I'm used to it. Like, I told this to my friend who's a massive Depeche Mode fan, and bear in mind she was tattooing my leg whilst I told her this, and I thought she was going to stab me. No, I'm joking. She wasn't.
Draw a penis on you.
Yeah. But no, I love Depeche Mode as well. I just don't. I don't like the original either. It's nothing to do with Ghost. It's literally I just don't like the original song either. It's just too slow and too. And bear in mind, I like a lot of slow music. Like I'm a fucking Cure fan for fuck's sake. But just doesn't do anything for me.
I feel like it doesn't matter how good an artist is or how much you love them or how important they are to you. There's always going to be at least one song that's kind of like,
Yeah, that's my song. I don't particularly. I don't think it's not. I know it's one of the few where I just don't enjoy any of it.
Yeah, you're just not jiving with it.
Yeah, and it's not even that I'm like, it's just it's like I find it a little bit insufferable, which is which is a strong word, but hey ho.
We never talked about the dildo.
Let's talk about the dildo.
Like, I find that so funny. Like, it's like, I know, like, they're not the first band to ever release a sex toy, because, like, obviously Rammstein had that whole box set of dicks. But I just think it's like it's one of my favorite interview answers he ever gave was
Yeah.
that one. Like, why did you not release any music with the Phallus Mortis box set? It's like, well, if used correctly, you'll hear a tone. That man had that answer locked in his brain for somebody asking him that, and he finally got to say it, and you can just tell he's so happy.
He was like, he was planning. He was like, please, someone ask me this question. Please, I have the perfect answer. And then they did, and he got to say it.
Yeah, and they also released condoms, I think, as well.
They did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because, like, that box set had a butt plug in it, a divorce. I'm not entirely sure what the little. I have the reissued box. I'm too scared to open the scroll because I'm scared of not being able to close it again. Like, it's like a divorce paper or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hold on.
it's I
Yeah.
opened mine. It's quite good.
Yeah, it's like a divorce
wait.
paper where you're like divorcing somebody just so you could marry the Antichrist or something. I don't know, but like, and then there's a pin, which I find just really funny. It's like, here's a dildo, here's a butt plug, here's a divorce paper, and here's a pin that you can put on your bag. or your
Did you
jacket.
see there was those little they almost look like sauce packets of, I'm assuming they're like syrup, but it's blood.
Mm.
But they're so out of date now, and most of them
Oh.
have evaporated. But people are still selling them for like $100 on the Facebook groups.
Oh yeah, the like little communion packets.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
there's nothing in them. You're paying for the packet at this point, and if you eat it,
Yeah.
don't drink it. You will end up in hospital.
You will die.
If that's how I'm gonna go, that's how I want to go. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, Cammy's got it. Yeah, it's wow. I want to get married and divorced just so I can use this.
I just
It's
find
legal
that
tender.
I think it was like legal reasons they couldn't. I think it's like because it was a sex toy, it goes through different like legalese for selling it,
Yeah.
so they couldn't like package it with music. And he has the only version that doesn't have BC on the front of it, like the original
I like the
box
idea that
set.
that's just in his house on the
Yeah.
mantelpiece.
He's probably got it somewhere in a storage container in Stockholm, just full of like treasure trove of ghosts and repugnant stuff, But yeah, he has the only version that doesn't have the BC on it, and there's a whole thing as well about the fact that they had to call themselves Ghost BC because the deluge of bands in America, like I think it was like there's a lot of bands called Ghost. But also, the record label was worried that they couldn't get copyright on Ghost.
Yeah.
So like obviously BC is supposed to represent, like obviously the 8 BC AD thing, but he jokingly said it was before copyright.
I know, I love that so much.
It's great. Like,
or wasn't it because copyright or something?
Yeah, because copyright or something. But it's because he said they're just ghosts. Like that's what they're not Ghost BC. They never were Ghost BC. But it's also makes searching for magazines from that time very annoying. So it does. As an avid magazine collector, it makes trying to find magazines from the Infestissusam era a bit more annoying because they're listed under Ghost BC. So like if sometimes you'll search for stuff just under Ghost and nothing comes up for it, and then you have to go the whole hula hoop to find it with Ghost BC. But
I'm gonna quickly finish off with this one last little thing, as we briefly touched off record. So Dave Grohl was quite like Dave Grohl, if you didn't know, produced and played drums on If You Have Ghosts. So I think he played it. I know he definitely did it on I'm a Marionette, the drums, because you could just tell. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'll have to look up whether he did the drums on every track. But the big thing is, and they were getting this. I think they still get asked to this day this question of whether Dave Grohl played live with them, and I've heard multiple answers from Sir Forge himself, so I don't know what to fucking
Yeah.
believe. Where he's like, "Oh, he did one," or like, "He did put on a costume, but he's never played live," and or he, yes, but you wouldn't know when, and so he's, which is it? Which is it, Forge?
I actually found a video. I think it's from the Meliora era, where they had a second set of drums on stage with like they weren't, because they had their drums on stage that they were going to use, but then they set up a second set of drums that had this different drummer on them, and like a lot of people think it's Dave just because of the way he is when he's playing. Like he has a very
Yeah.
distinctive way where he looks when he plays, so people think it's him in that clip doing it, you know, because of this. Because like, also as well, I think the drum setup was something that he used at that time. You know, so people in the comments are very much all in agreement, which is very rare for a YouTube comment section, that that it is Dave in that clip. But again, you'll never know.
Do you want to know the band that was supporting Foo Fighters that where Dave broke his leg and fell off stage? It was
Yeah.
our Ghost. That was so. Imagine Toby inside stage just watching that happen of Dave just fucking falling off stage.
He's like, of
And be
course,
like,
it's
"Oh
when we're
shit."
supporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I just I have one more thing to say, I think. I just find it really cool how like with Papa 2 and the whole INFESTISSUMAM era, just again the whole era, it was like pretty much like the first introduction of like lore when it came to ghosts, because like they didn't really do a whole lot with Primo's era. Primo, Papa Emeritus 1, Opus, that whole era. They didn't really do a
Andre the
whole lot.
First.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't really do a whole lot with it. I mean, like obviously they had like kind of like a gimmick with it, but they never really had like a story, and they didn't really like do interviews. I think like there's only like there's like a couple magazines where technically there's like an interview or something, or like I think maybe there's like one clip from like a ghoul from the first era talking about the band or whatever, but there wasn't really ever like a story or anything like that. Whereas like when we got into Infestissima era, there were more what we call special ghoul interviews, which is just Tobias in a ghoul costume interviewing, and then you got the introduction with the lore where you'll have like the Papagana series.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, so you have like those two videos, and you kind of see this other personality of Papa Emeritus 2, and how he kind of talks about how like he's more into the idea of being the front man because it comes like with like fame, and you get like a name for yourself because he likes partying on the side. And so like you just get like he introduced like these personalities. And also with Papa too, like because you had like this like kind of like passing off, like he put on like a whole thing at Papa Emeritus the one's last show. He literally like passed it off to Papa Emeritus 2, so they had like two people on stage, one dressed up as Papa Emeritus 1, and then Tobias dressed up as Papa Emeritus 2, and they literally had like a whole like little ceremony. And he's like, sono Papa Emeritus Secondo, or whatever.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
love that.
yeah, and then he did the same thing when he was ending his era, where someone dressed up as him in his little Mr. Worldwide outfit, and they were playing Genesis, and like he was like kind of waving goodbye because he was just retiring because he wanted to continue on like just partying or whatever, and then he passed it off to his younger brother, Papa
By
Emeritus
6 months.
10. But yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting how like he really introduced like a story and like personality when it came to like the second album cycle, and it introduced like this giant part of Ghost fandom, where like lore, we finally got more lore, or we really like this was the introduction into like this side of Ghost, and it just expanded just after this. And also I think, if I'm not mistaken, with the Infestissimum and Secondo's era is when they started joining more social media platforms. I think this is when they first started joining like Facebook. I know that's when they joined Instagram and I don't think no. They were
They were on Twitter already.
Yeah, they were on Twitter already, but like they were posting more. They started posting more once they were in Infestissimum's era, and they could kind of like play this up. And I think that's also when they started like post like I think they just posted like a couple videos like on YouTube here and there, but it was like mostly from that second era. So it just introduced this whole new side of it and this new way to kind of like expand and make them kind of unique.
Yeah, for sure. Was that because they moved over from Rise Above to Universal, and that's when the guy was like, "What's the story?" Blah blah blah. And
I think so, yeah. And he was just, and they're like, "Oh, there's not really a story." It's like, "Well, there's got to be a story." And then we got Ghost Lore. Then we got lore.
and then we got this.
Yeah, because I think he said
that.
Lore. Yeah, I think he said because he thought the MySpace story wasn't interesting enough to keep kind of telling. You know, like so he decided also as well because they like the whole idea of them being anonymous. You know, so just give them this dragged out of the crypts of the Vatican to become like an evil satanic version of the church and stuff. I love the propaganda video because I love whenever he's talking in air quotes Italian. It's not, like he's just saying words. Like if you actually like listen underneath, like to him talking underneath, he's just saying things that sound Italian. And then I think it's really funny that in the second episode they dubbed him over with somebody who's actually speaking Italian because I think he realized the people were going, that sounds like Special Goal sounds an awful lot like Papa. He's like, shit.
Have you seen that makes me think of that clip from the IT crowd where Jen says that she could speak Italian to try and impress like her boss, and then she gets into the meeting and she's just like, "Mucho bradesco punto."
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah.
Mario. Just saying random like things that sound Italian.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. But like, I just think it's so funny because also as well, I think people were starting to try and like obviously the more popular they got, people were trying to figure out who he was. Like they even like in that propaganda, they like blur his ears.
Sensible ears.
You know, like because people were like comparing his ears, like from Repugnant to pictures of Papa too, and they're like, "It's his ears," and he's like, "Shit." Like he was so determined to keep anonymous, like.
And then when he moved on to Terzo, he made like the ear holes smaller because the ear holes were really big in the Secondo mask, and then they made them smaller so his like ears end up like scrunching up and like turning red. And it's like this poor man did everything to make sure no one knew who he was.
I mean, bear in mind, this is the fandom that during propaganda was like trying to compare pictures of his ass in jeans to in propaganda to figure out if it was a body double or not. I am team. It is.
Yeah.
It is the tabas.
Tabas.
It's the tabooty.
It's the bias. On that note.
But another thing as well, during this era, one of the things I noticed as well, like, because Martin used to do some of the interviews too, you know? And I always think it's really funny, you can so tell the difference between Martin and, obviously, like, they sound different, like, when they speak, but I've noticed a lot of people seem to not be able to tell them apart when they talk sometimes, which is weird. But I love that you can tell the difference between whenever it's Martin doing the interviews and whenever it's Tobias, because Tobias is he sits very up straight, you know, with his legs crossed, and you know, like he's very you know, polite
Proper.
shaped. You know, like. But then if you look at Martin, Martin is so laid back. Like, there's the amount of interviews this man just kind of like sprawled out,
Yeah,
talking
lying on
the
the
thing.
couch.
Yeah, that right. Like, I love that interview where he's just like lying sideways on the couch talking, and I just think it's so funny just seeing the kind of juxtaposition between the two of them. You know. And also as well, like a shout out to Martin because Martin came up with the ghoul costumes for Era 2. Like he's kind of responsible for the way they looked. Era 2 and Era 3 are kind of his ideas, you know? And then also as well, like Tobias said that Martin came up with the concept or something of Year Zero, but then he like wrote the lyrics and then rearranged it and all this here, and you're like, so you wrote Year Zero. Martin just kind of hinted
Gave
at
you an
something. I don't
idea.
know. Yeah, you know, but I like the fact that you give him credit for it. You know, like
Mm.
you didn't need to, because like it's you know, but yeah, like shout out to Martin because Martin also, like, you know, I feel like the Era 2 ghouls look really cool. Like, is that one photo of I don't know which one it is because I can't tell them apart in second era, but one of them like walking towards camera off stage. And it just looks so cool. Like I love the Era 2 costumes are kind of just like upgraded Era 1. You know, like it's the same kind of concept Era 1 had, except now the ghouls can see.
Well, isn't it? I might be wrong on this because I'm not looking at a picture right now. But wasn't like remember during like the Opus era when they like wore all the white outfits? Weren't the
Yeah.
ghoul outfits for that era just the white version of the Era 2 ghoul
Yeah.
outfits? Yeah.
The Bantu mask was there already because I do think they were having visual issues with the kind of ski mask things they were wearing that didn't have any eye holes.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like I can't see or breathe, and he's like, "Is that a problem?" Yes, it's a problem. Okay, because I love
Also,
that interview from the Rolling Stones when he's talking about the ghoul masks. I can't see in this mask. I can't breathe
Oh,
in this mask. Is that a problem?
yes.
You just see and
also,
breathe to play guitar. I don't know.
also shout out to Infestissimum because I'm pretty sure it was the first album or first Ghost album that won a Swedish Grammy.
It was.
Yes, and I think was it him and Martin that came up in the like the ghoul costumes and they accepted
Yeah,
the
I think it's Martin doing the
Aw.
talking though, and he's kind of standing beside him, like, you know, like. But yeah, that I feel like Infestism was probably the time where he was the most open to collaborative ideas before he decided, fuck this. No.
You get nothing.
You lose. But
So busy lifting drinks.
Right, so that's that for Infestissimum. So next one we're going to be covering Meliora. Next one we're going to be covering is Meliora and Popestar. So catch us in a few weeks' time. We'll be chatting about that. Katie, where can we find you?
C2May on Twitter.com.
Alana.
HXC Fairy on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok.
And Chameleonaire.
your fave guestie on all of the social media platforms.
I'm Alva. You know where I am. Bye.
She's gonna kill you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.